Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Speakeasy podcast, where we talk about the author and speaker journey, that behind the scenes stuff that people are kind of hush hush about and don't want to talk about simply because of fear, simply because they don't know. But we're going to come to you each and every week to make sure that you have those tidbits, those tips and resources in your arsenal in order for you to be able to be the best version of you, because that's what it's all about. It all boils down to you being the best version of you, because guess what? A duplicate, a replica is not going to work. We've seen it happen. And we've seen many crash and burn, which is why I'm so interested in today's topic and today's guest as well. And so, wait, let me go back to the topic. So the topic is from fragmented to connected. And our guest today is Miss, I was about to say it wrong. I was about to say Eva, I really was.
It always happens.
Ava, yes. That is our guest for today. And you know why? Because I looked down, and as soon as I looked down, I looked right at the name. Yep. Immediately was about to say the wrong name. Ava is our guest for today. I love her name. It's gorgeous. And so when we're talking about from fragmented to connected, this is actually her signature speech. Now, let's talk about this, because I know that a lot of you as speakers, you kind of float through the air when it comes to speeches, and you don't really know what a signature speech is, or like the power of having a signature speech. So that's going to be one of those pieces that we talk about today as well. But when we think about that whole journey of being fragmented to connected, we have to understand that it is a journey. It really is. Like, this is not I open my eyes and it's all wonderful and I'm speaking on stages across the world. And no, there's some things that have to be done along the way. So Ava, hey, how are you doing today?
I am doing really, really well. Thank you so much for having me. It's really an honor and a pleasure, and I am looking forward to our conversation.
I am too, considering it started out with a bang, right?
It's bound to be a good one.
It's bound to be a great one. So tell everybody a little bit about yourself, and then we'll dig right into today's topic.
Okay. So the short version, or the condensed version of who I am, is I am a Puerto Rican woman turned nurse, wife, mom, theologian, pastor, military chaplain, therapist, life coach, and businesswoman. So that is the short version of it. I work with women, and my work centers around wholeness. So healing into wholeness, living life whole, piece by piece, and then awakening to a divine essence that is within us, that I feel awakens once we're able to connect to our truth. And then out of that, how do we rise in the world connected to our power and our creative source? So that is the basis of my work. And I do that via speaking, I write, and I also do one-on-one work. And next year I'm launching retreats. So that's kind of like how I do my sacred work, which is, I feel, is what I was meant to do in this world.
And so I love that, because as a speaker, as an author, so we come onto this journey, and some people started off being the author because they said, oh, you can make money with books. And people said, oh my goodness, I'm going to be a billionaire because I sell books. Yeah. And then they said, oh, but if you speak on stages, you can make money from speaking. And somebody said, great, somebody's going to pay me $1 million to get on their stage. And then you're like, no, that's not.
No. Well, and I feel that is because the intention or the why is on the wrong place. If you're doing something for money, perhaps your heart is not invested in it. And so eventually it's going to show that you're not into it for the right reasons.
Exactly. And it goes back to that fragmented piece. Because when I see that people are coming into the industry in that mindset, they're kind of fragmented because they're not really passionate about what they're speaking about or who they're trying to reach.
Right. And I believe that we all, like all of us, have a story that is worthy to be told in the world, right? And so, but it doesn't necessarily have to be told via using a speaker format or a writer's format. Like, it could be done through art and music and pottery. You know, our stories can take form and shape in different ways that don't necessarily, not everybody has to be a speaker. Not everybody has to be a writer. There are other ways to getting your message into the world in a different way.
Exactly. And so that's, if y'all did not hear that, you're going to have to rewind and listen to that part again, because you definitely want to make sure that, first and foremost, when you think about coming into this industry, it is a business. And there's a lot of business pieces to it that are not all pretty and sparkly. There are some business pieces to it that are very stressful. And so coming into it with the wrong mindset will ultimately put you in the negative. Negative mindset, negative bank account, negative energy, negative in everything, because you're trying to live up to this this idea. It's not real, it's fictitious. And we have to understand that, okay, literally I have to be honest and transparent about my life in being the author and the speaker, because that's going to be how I ultimately relate with people. So when you're talking to people, what's normally, when thinking about fragmented to connected, when thinking about the fragmented piece, what's normally that first thing that you're like, okay, wait, before you do anything else, I need you to do this?
Well, the first, the way I talk about, like, my speech is my story. That's my signature speech, which is my story of how I journey from fragmented to connected. And the first thing that we all feel is that restlessness within us, that there is something that's not right, that there is something else out there, that we're missing something, that even though we might be, like I was, very successful and accomplished, I had 2 master's degrees, I had really good jobs. At night, when I lay down in my bed, I knew that I was built for more, that I was designed for more, or for something else, not necessarily like there was like a step, but for something else. And I didn't know what that was. And so because of that, because I wasn't whole at the time, I kept thinking that academics, getting degrees, was the way that I would become whole, and that I would become accepted, loved, that I would be welcomed into my society and my culture. And so the first thing is identifying that restlessness that you might have if there's a piece of your life that is missing, or that you've adopted a piece in your life because society told you that that's how it should be. And so the first thing is always welcoming the restlessness, just accepting that there is a restlessness, that there is something within you that is not right, that there's an area of your life that perhaps is unfulfilled. And then we figure out what that is.
And that's so on point. I know for me in my journey, that was it. I was the one that would go and work all of these different jobs, and I would go and I would, climb the ladder and get all the accolades and get all of these things. And then when I came home, it was just like, or I would go through this cycle. And this is one of the things that that I just recently put into the newest book I'm working on, is that I went through this cycle where I go and, I get hired, and they will love everything that I'm doing. I'm an amazing employee. I get all of the accolades. I get bored and tired and frustrated easily. And it can be after being there for 5 years, after being there for 3 years, you start to say, okay, is this it? Is this all? And for me, this last go round and working full time, I couldn't do it anymore. As I said, this is draining. I'm appreciative. And a lot of times we think that we have to be there. That's the only option.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just like, this is draining. This is not fulfilling. And when I come home, I don't even have enough energy to be bothered with my children, let alone enjoy, being home and enjoying time with them. But I didn't even have enough time, energy just to enjoy just being home.
Absolutely. And I find that there, especially for women, there's so many of us that, just think that things need to be a certain way, or like society tells us. And especially for me as a Latina, as a woman of color, looking into my story, I can see the places where I was told that I was too passionate, or I was too impulsive, or I was too aggressive, or I was too loud, or I wasn't light enough. All these messages that are the things that I call pieces keep falling off your soul, right? And that's where you start to like become fragmented. And so you think that you have to, in order to be accepted into society, or in order to fit in, that you have to adopt all these other pieces, but they're not innate to you. They're not your pieces that you were designed to use. And so there comes a certain point in time, it's usually around the late 30s and the 40s, where you've done all the things you were supposed to be doing, that you, like for me, I had a mental breakdown. I had this panic attack and I felt like I was dying, like the room was closing in, and I knew it was a panic attack, but at the same time, I had this visualization where I saw myself coming at the end of my life, and I was completely in pieces, like I wasn't a person. It was just pieces of myself were showing up to the finish line. And that was it for me. Like I saw that my life was completely in pieces, even though it looked perfect from the outside. And I had the job that I thought I was designed to do as a women's pastor. And it wasn't it. It wasn't it, because I had adopted so many other pieces that were not innate to who I was, that eventually they just fell off. They fell apart because they weren't glued with my soul.
It's so interesting because I always think about the story of David and, Saul saying, here, put on this armor, put on my armor. And, a lot of times we see it as a badge of honor.
Right.
On all of these pieces that don't belong to us. It's because of the people that are giving us the pieces, the people that are telling us that the pieces are special. And we go and we put on all of these pieces, and then we're looking at, and I understand, people love abstract art, but sometimes the pieces just don't go.
Well, because it's not designed for us. It doesn't fit us right. It's too heavy on us because it was never intended to reflect who we are.
Exactly. And it's so, I tell people, I said, when you're looking at the Les Brown, and we're looking at the Lisa Nichols, and we're looking at people that have gotten to a higher level of speaking, you don't see the behind the scenes. You don't see the hours that they put in to get to that point. You don't see like people think about Lisa Nichols and they're like, oh, well, she must get paid about $30,000, $40,000 every time she speaks. No, Lisa Nichols still has times where she speaks for free. Les Brown still has times where he speaks for free. And people are just like, oh, well, I don't want to do pay for play. And I don't want, no, learn the industry, learn what not to do and what you can do. Learn what's really going on behind the scenes before you really jump out there and say, well, I'm not going to do this and I'm not going to do that. No. Get educated about what's really going on. And that's
even before, I would say even before that, it goes back to that motive piece. Like, are you in it for the right reasons? Are you in it because you have a story that you think is worthy to tell, because you've heard from some people that they can relate to certain pieces of it and that it's made an impact in their lives? And then, when you become aligned with your soul and your soul dictates the next steps, like everything falls into place and into alignment. And whether it is you make $30,000 from a speaking engagement, or you made 5 or 500, if you're in it because your soul has directed you to bring something meaningful to that audience, and it doesn't matter. And yes, I understand that we need to eat and we have to pay the bills, but going into it for the right reasons makes a huge difference when those things are not happening as fast as we think they need to be happening.
Exactly. And I just finished reading People Over Profits and The Game of Life and How to Play It. And so I'm clearing out all of these ideas that I used to have about, business in general. Because we have to always, what do I always tell you guys that are listening? If you are a speaker, you are an author, you are also an entrepreneur. So this is a business. And so all of the ideas that I originally had about business and about, working with people and connecting with people, I had to really reconstruct my whole mindset after, leaving a job and becoming the entrepreneur and really saying, okay, this is the thing. I was working under somebody else's rules and regulations, and even when it didn't fit my values. But now my rules and regulations can be all about my values.
And then your business becomes an expression of who you are.
Exactly, through and through. And so one of the things that I wanted to discuss as well was that, this signature speech. So you have your signature speech. I know I have my signature talk that I talk about, which is loving your voice and finding your voice. And this is your signature speech. But how did you come about making it your signature speech?
So it came about, I've always loved to speak. I spoke when I was little, like in my school, like I won prizes. I love to just speak in front of people. As a pastor, I spoke at my graduation. I love to speak. But the signature speech came about because I went into a program that would help me craft different stories of my life into a speech. So I have a vivid imagination and lots of ideas, right? And it's easy for when you're either writing or speaking, you have so many ideas and you want to throw them all out there, right? And then it could be like the story of you're so good at so many things that you end up being not good at all because, you put your energy into so many things. And so this program focused on figuring out what was that story from your life that was most impactful that you thought was worthy of telling in a very powerful way. And so I have more than one speech. Like I'm able to speak to different topics because one, I have a varied background with, my degrees and my experiences. And so I have those speeches that can speak to a specific audience, but they're all on the umbrella of this signature speech, which is my life. And it's the umbrella of, kind of like my mess became my message and then it became my movement. And under that movement, there are all these other speeches that I can bring into an audience, but they all fall perfectly into the arching theme of my life, which is live whole piece by piece. And so all of my speeches are pieces of lessons that I've learned throughout my life, but they all fit beautifully under that signature speech. And so that would be the speech that you're best known for, that people would associate you with, like, oh, Ava, she speaks about wholeness. And so when somebody wants to hire you or ask you to speak, they know, oh yeah, she's the one that speaks about wholeness and her story is, the pieces and the wholeness and the healing. And so I think it's very important because it helps you in the industry to stand out, and because nobody has your story. Nobody has the experiences that you have. Nobody has learned the lessons that you've learned in your own particular way. Even if the situations are similar, you gain different experiences and different lessons than I did because we're wired differently, because our backgrounds are differently, because we come from different places. And so that signature speech is really, really powerful if you can craft it and embrace it and put it out there, because then it becomes you. This is what they see when they're looking for a speaker, and you become known for that.
which is a great point and leads me into my next topic, because we're talking about this being your signature speech. This is your story. We have to be careful about not falling into the trap of, saying, I'm going to create a speech that people are going to want to hear. Because I think that's another trap that we kind of fall into in the beginning, is what is it that people want to hear? I'm just going to tell them what they want to hear. Not understanding that your story is something that somebody somewhere wants.
Absolutely. And that's like that backwards thinking, trying to create something because I think people are going to want to hear that, versus what is it in my life story that perhaps relates to something that is currently happening. And I could tie that into my speech, but always bring it back to how it applies to me in a way that then people can take pieces of that speech and say, oh yeah, that piece, that I resonate with that piece.
Yes, that makes so much sense. I love that. That has been something that I've been instilling in my clients forever, because I'm just like, no, you're not going to do what you think or what you believe, because you often end up sounding like someone else, or you take on the personality of somebody else, and then when you show up, it doesn't match.
And smart audiences will figure out, the fakeness and the authenticity. And you want a smart audience, because a smart audience is the one that's going to be most engaging with you, is the one that is going to spread the word about your speech. And so you want to make sure that you come across as authentic, because people can read fake.
Yes, indeed, they can. And so I always ask this question of anybody that comes on. I say, in this journey, we have some blunders. So we have some things that don't go quite right, some things that kind of made us bump our head a little bit. So in this journey so far, what has been a blunder for you?
I would say that, you talk a lot about the signature speech, and I think owning that fully has been one of the most powerful things. But then the blunder would be trying to do another thing that is not that. And, in this whole journey of healing and wholeness, what you find is that after you've integrated all the pieces to yourself, there is an awakening and an unfolding. And in that unfolding, there are many, many layers. So you never stop. You never stop becoming whole. You continue to unfold and continue to peel layers of that unfolding. And the blunder for me would have been that I waited till the wholeness was complete to put myself out there, thinking that I needed to have it all together before I put myself out there. And not knowing that there was a gift in the process of healing, and that I was already integrated, and that my audience can grow with me as I shared the journey.
That's powerful. I think that's a huge one, because we had that perfectionism, that everything's supposed to be in the right place. All the T's are crossed, all the I's are dotted. And in the reality of things, we're going to learn things along the way. Things are always changing, because even though you would think that speaking is pretty much a pretty simple, laid out strategy, but with the inclusion of social media, with the updates to technology, there are so many different options. And so I may have someone who comes to me and they go, oh, well, and I'll make a PowerPoint, and, well, did you figure out if your audience even wants a PowerPoint? That's something that was powerful back in a certain time in a certain era. But as of right now, is that something that your audience wants? And that's that perfectionism. Oh, this is the outline that they gave me. Okay, well, sometimes we got to throw the outline away. And we just got to focus on the audience. Through and through. Just what is it that they need? What is it they need? How do they want it? and then we got to figure it out from there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, that battle, it goes on, because then as you reach another level, you're like, oh, I'm supposed to look a certain way, and I have to present this way, and I have to sound this, and no.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
I tell people all the time, I'm silly, I giggle. Yes, I know that seems very odd, but okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very expressive. I speak with my hands. And in industries, people will tell you that that's not a good thing to speak with your hands, but that's who I am.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you have to be true to who you are through and through. Mm-hmm. And so, guys, you guys know that those of you that have been listening for any length of time to the Speakeasy podcast, that I always push you towards authenticity. That's going to be your top thing always, because there is definitely only one you, and there is already a Les Brown. There's already a Lisa Nichols. There's already all of these other people. If you just show up as you, people will love that.
Mm-hmm. 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 Absolutely.
They definitely will. And so
to be okay too, that not everybody will love you, but those that really, really resonate with your message will love you, and will love you hard.
Exactly. They will be there for everything. They will show up at events.
Yeah, absolutely.
They will show up at events. They will show up. Listen, if they could, they would show up at your doorstep.
Which might not be a good thing.
If they could, they would show up at your doorstep, but they will show up at events. They'll show up when you're live streaming. They'll show up, and if you're doing an interview, they're the ones that show up at the interview and listen and share it out. That's how you build your community.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's how you be authentic.
Absolutely.
That is it. I love it. I appreciate you coming on for today. And
thank you for having me.
To let everybody know where they can get in contact with you and how they find you on social media.
So my website is www.evacruzpena.com. So it's EVACRUZPENA.com, or on Facebook or Instagram at Eva Cruz Pena Life Coach.
Awesome. And guys, I love having you guys as a part of the conversation. But listen, even if you're catching this via the replay, her information will be in the description as well as in the comments. But I want you to come and listen. If you're a speaker and author, I want to get your journey. I want to get your take on what you're doing in your life. So bit.ly/Speakeasy Podcast, all lowercase, is how you sign up to be a guest or here on the Speakeasy Podcast with your host, Altaviz Pelzer, the voice coach, professional speaker, certified life coach, Amazon bestselling author, and podcaster. And I appreciate each and every one of you guys. Remember, always show up in your authenticity. And look, this is a journey. You're going to learn some things. You may do some things right. You may do some things not so right. But just keep going. So with that being said, until next time, guys, don't forget to press it out.